I think we're ready to go. Welcome, all of you. Welcome back to Etc. This is our series of artist talks and interviews, and these talks are intended to enrich our life drawing and portrait drawing program online. So we make them free and available to everyone. So I'm glad that you're all here, and for people that might be watching later, it's lovely to be able to make all of those available. And they're funded by our supporters over on Patreon. So thank you to everyone that supports us. And if you wanted to support what we do, I'll pop a little link into the chat during this talk, just so that you can go over and give us some support if you'd like to. But it is just a pleasure to have everybody here. A particular pleasure because today I'm going to be speaking to the artist Roy Eastland about his work and about life drawing more widely as well. And Roy's based in Margate here in the UK. I know we're an international audience. He's had his work widely exhibited here in the UK, so many of you may have come across it in different open exhibitions all around the country, as well as his own solo exhibitions. At the moment, there's a drawing, I believe, currently touring as part of the Trinity Boy Wharf Drawing Prize, and I think it's at the Arts University Bournemouth at the moment. But correct me, Roy, if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So you can go and see it if you'd like to. It's a beautiful one. It's a great show as well, the Trinity Boy Wharf Drawing Prize. So do go and see it if you're in the UK and you can. Roy's also or has been an associate lecturer at UCA at Rochester and has taught and spoken about drawing for Kent Outdoor Education, for Canterbury Christchurch University, Turner Contemporary, the V&A, and many others, as well as us here at Draw. And we're going to be lucky enough to have Draw teaching for us in person at the Draw Studio later in the year. So you can always sign up to our newsletter if you wanted to get more details about that. But tonight we're just going to start off talking a little bit about Roy's work. And welcome, Roy. It's lovely to have you here.
Oh, right. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
oh.
well, put
See
you on.
myself now.
Well, shall I jump into your work?
Yeah. You don't look at me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to put it in context, but there we go. Fantastic. So talk me through. What are we looking at here?
Well, I thought the first four images, they're all related drawings from a series of drawings called Displaced Portraits, and they're sort of it's the kind of work I've been showing in exhibitions, for a while, recently, and it's an ongoing series of drawings. They're drawn with silver on gesso, so they're Silverpoint drawings, and they're kind of about A5-ish sort of size altogether. And this particular series of drawings are based on photographs that I picked up in a local second-hand shop at various times, all kind of separately. And these ones just happen to have been the original photographs have been taken in Germany in the 1930s, 1940s. And somehow they've ended up in a second-hand shop in Margate. And there's no particular reason to think that they're necessarily connected, although well, they might be as well, and there's no kind of story about how they ended up there. It could be any number of reasons, and also the thinking behind using the term displaced portraits is there's various reasons. There's partly it's to do with the idea of displacement generally, people and so on, but also it's the idea of drawing, I think, being a drawing being a displaced thing. It's like it's a trace of something. It's a trace of something which was present and isn't any longer. And with these objects, the original sort of photographs were are kind of displaced things as well. They were sort of personal objects that have ended up, in a second-hand shop. And in a way, you could think of second-hand shops as being a bit like museums, really, without a classification system or something, a cataloging system. They're just it's just stuff that kind of can represent somebody or a time or something. But we don't have the stories with these, But if you go back to just the first one, that's the original photograph there had been torn in half and then stuck back together again carefully. So for some reason, something went on there. I don't know. Kind of obviously, I don't know what the story was there. And these are not straightforward copies of the original photographs. They're not just they're never just copies. These drawings are constantly redrawn, and details are changed in order to make them work as drawings sometimes. For example, this is the central area is a sort of a darkish area, and the area around the figure is sort of lightish. But that's not quite the same on the photograph. But that's partly to sort of make it work, as so we're focused on the face, so we sort of maybe think about this person. Um, and other details have been simplified. Earlier versions of this, I had more detail to do with what she's wearing and so on. Um, but who knows what the story is here about the torn photograph. But if you go to the next one, so this one, this is sort of thinking as well that any objects that you can pick up is connected with every other thing that's happening in the world and has happened. Um, and in this case, it was a photograph taken in 1944, and this is from the back of the photograph. It says this, and it's from Mysovich in Silesia in Poland, and that was in Poland before the war, but with a sizable German population, ethnic German population, and then towards the end of the war, the ethnically German people were expelled. So the who knows, if this person was uh, Polish or German, as it were. Um, and I mean, there's lots more I could say about this. In fact, it's sometimes these things. I did a lot of work on people that were killed by this bomb in the First World War in Folkestone. And that led to people that were connected with some of the people I'd drawn contacting me and telling their family stories about what happened and why somebody was there and so on. So, even like a long time after the event, these sort of kind of stories and connections re-emerge. And I was able to sort of connect people, somebody in Australia and somebody in Britain with each other because they'd had this connection, their family members back in 1917, had known each other or had some connection. Um, so you never know if stories will emerge. With this particular one, three people actually have contacted me one way or another to say that they knew somebody or in one case, a sort of a neighbor, I think, uh, was always said that she was it Polish? Because she was embarrassed to say that she was German during the war, and so there's this kind of story, there are these sort of untold stories in a way, or stories that that don't get noticed, and they're just people. So partly, I'm not making any judgment or anything of any of these people. I'm just sort of presenting them for us to sort of engage with them and sort of care about them really. And if you go to the next one, uh, oh yeah, that's one. Like the so this one I was kind of surprised, sort of, although I shouldn't have been surprised really, to see on the back of the photograph that the photographer was based in Adolf Hitler Street in Durham. And of course, it's not called that now. But it kind of obviously that sort of locates it in a particular time. But also the baby, presumably, the baby could be 80-ish, might be, still alive, Uh, so who knows, and yeah, so with the next one, next slide. And this one again is like on the back. There was writing in German, but the type of script was different from the typical German handwriting and other backs of photographs. So, and it was it's located to Brno or Brno, whatever, what's now a Czech Republic. And again, the German population was expelled at the end of the war, so we don't know why. You don't know what happens to this person, and this was a particularly difficult drawing to draw because of the way it was it actually has a dark background. So kind of it sounds simple to sort of to sort of isolate the figure, um, but it actually is it is really difficult to sort of to kind of see parts of the original, points of reference sort of differently from how they actually are, in reality. So like trying to see the dark areas light and whatever. And also trying to get the face, so I say they're not straightforward copies, I'm trying to get the character of the person. And of course I've never met these people, and they're I'm trying to see them. And the photograph is just sort of this trace of a moment, that there's no kind of before or after or context or anything. So in redrawing, in drawing them, I'm trying to sort of, they're kind of in a way like meditations on these kind of, I guess, were displaced sort of traces of a moment. And um, so in redrawing them, and the way I draw with these, I'm constantly redrawing and redrawing and scratching away and drawing again and scratching away and drawing again. But also another thing I should say about maybe Silverpoint is that you can't rub it out. It's and you only get a mid-tone grey. You can't get any blacks, for example. So it's a difficult thing to work with. But you can, even though you can't rub it out, you can sort of scratch it away.
Mhm.
And these gesso boards are sort of there's lots of layers of gesso, so I'm kind of they're scratched into a lot, uh, and reworking, I'm almost obliterating the thing and starting again almost. But there's no traces of earlier versions and so on. So partly the way they're made, is sort of mimicking kind of memory and history. That you get like an earlier version, then another version, and another version. Um, and these things kind of change over time. So hopefully when if you spend time with these things, you kind of look and notice more the more you look. But and another one more thing about the Silverpoint uh, medium as well is that the when the drawings are drawn fresh, they're a sort of like a mid grey. And then they kind of go a more of a sort of a sort of slightly brownish grey over time. So I quite like that sort of unpredictability and that sort of change. So you were about to say something there.
Oh no, well I was
Uh,
just so the network of kind of marks built up. Is that from scratching in with a single point, or are you using sort of sandpaper or something to take away? Because there's such an intensity of marks present there.
yeah, it's a mixture. I do also use sandpaper as well. And when I kind of use sandpaper to scratch away, I'm quite strict with myself. I sound across from every kind of angle. I don't try to save anything. I mean, if I don't want that thing where I'm thinking, oh, there's a nice bit of drawing there. I'll preserve that little bit of drawing, and I'll scratch out the rest. So I try to treat it uh, as constantly sort of drawing across the whole thing. But yeah, the sort of that it's drawn into with needles and scalpel blades and sandpaper, and also drawn onto with the silver point. Uh, Also, maybe another thing about the silver point sort of technique, the medium, it's a bit like if you was to drag a key across a wall, like an emulsion painted wall, it would leave a certain kind of mark that you'd have to scratch away to get rid of it, really. So it's a sort of a similar kind of thing. Um, um, yeah, so they're they're people say they're detailed, but actually, the closer you look, the more they kind of disintegrate. So they're sort of, I suppose they're sort of detailed, but um, it's a difficult medium to work with. And lately, I've been wondering if to carry on using this medium, but I think I will be uh, sort of continuing with it. I think, um, but yeah, we'll see. And also, actually, one other thing I might do with this is sort of uh, this series. It may kind of change its character as time goes on. Um, but yeah, I'll I'll leave it at that for the moment. Anyway, there are I can probably yeah. at a time. Because if we go to the next one actually, because the next oh, that's good. Yeah, this is just a quick. This is the life room at the Margate Adult Education Centre, and it's been a life room since the 1930s, and there's been that continuous use throughout. It's in a lovely 1930s building um, that replaced a previously a Georgian building, actually, a nice a nice building that was there before, um, which was also used as the art college before, because it was built specifically for an art college, a kind of an FE college, really. Like a lot of towns had them, and the there's a sort of I used to sort of make a point of letting people know that Walter Sickert gave some talks on drawing in the building. And I think 1932, I think, something like that. He gave 3 talks on drawing. And he didn't actually teach there, but he was like, he gave these talks. I like to think there's a ghost of the idea of not rubbing out sort of in the room um, because I went sort of because Sickert had this sort of particular way of teaching drawing, and he insisted that people didn't rub out, and although he was insisting on kind of a sight size type of drawing, but the sort of, I don't mean sight size in terms of plumb lines and so on, but like but small drawings, and the um and no, and it's a sort of to not rub out, so to start light and so on. And there's various things I can say about his teaching there, but but I know from somebody that was at the college in the 1960s, and she said that the this chap Bernard Willis, who was the life tutor, uh, would confiscate rubbers if people used them too much. Um, and then I did one life drawing session there when I was at school because a teacher there also taught at the Adult Education Centre. And I remember him sort of threatening to take my rubber away because I was rubbing out too much. Um, and I also kind of like the idea of not rubbing out. So if there's a ghost in the room, it's a ghost of uh, tutors saying don't rub out, really. But anyway, it has good ghosts, I think. It's like churches that have got a feel. They've got that sort of sense of people being there for particular kind of reasons and so on. And I think life rooms like that. And likewise in Canterbury, there's a place called well, it was open, called the Sidney Cooper Gallery, and they've got lovely drawing studios there with top lit rooms. And it's a shame that it's not in use at the moment. But I was teaching there a while back, which is another lovely building. It's got a sort of these rooms that have got this sort of purpose, to do with especially with life drawing. You're just sort of looking and paying attention to the presence of somebody else, really. Yeah, go to the next slide. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a few examples of demonstration drawings from a couple of drawing exercises I tend to do. And there's quite a few drawing exercises to do, depending on the particular course. But I thought I quite often do these ones the for various reasons. And these first 2 images are actually of drawing them with just one line, so it's a continuous line. And the thinking here is that you can, even though you've got that restriction of just using the one line, you could vary its function as you go around. So uh, so you could have at one point in the drawing it's an edge, another point in the drawing it's a shape of a shadow, which in the shape of the shadow will kind of indicate the presence of form, because the shadow is there because the form is causing those shadows to have those particular shapes. Um, there might be other bits of the line that maybe are kind of about sort of proximity, so whatever's closest, or there might be with this drawing, for example, I've changed to using the side of the charcoal for one of the legs there. And you might want to think about they're also kind of islands, I call them, perhaps like, perhaps, so in this case, you've got the, you can't quite see them, but the feet and the hand. one of the hands there. They've got a very particular shape that's to do with abstracting the shape. So you're seeing uh, that bit of the figure as if you was looking through a pane of glass and closing one eye, and then just carefully drawing around the outline. And that's a different type of function from a line that's saying something about maybe imagine a line maybe that's spiraling, along an arm to sort of say that this is a cylindrical type of part of the figure. Um, and you could have another bit of a line that's saying something about a movement or something that the arm is doing, for example. So maybe not a brilliant example, but there's on the arm that's sort of going across the shoulder there. It's a kind of a zigzag, because what I'm saying there is like this part of the figure has this character, so its character is to come down and back up again. So by using a line that does that, it's sort of it's consistent with the thought. And if you tell somebody to draw with just one line, one continuous line, the automatic thing might be to do an outline, and which is fine. That works. But the thing is, I think with drawing is to learning to draw is to think about how lines mean something, or how they might sort of conjure up a sense of something in the mind of the viewer. So if you've got an outline, then what you're saying then is you've got in the case of figure drawing or drawing people, you've got something which is the figure, and then you've got this boundary, and then the stuff that's outside the boundary is not the figure. And that's absolutely fine if that's what you want to say. But if you want to say that, like, maybe a hand is closer, you might want to say use a darker line, say from something that's further away. And also it's actually with the continuous line drawing, it's quite a good exercise, quite a good thing to do to start a drawing, because you have to accept the whole drawing. So there's like mistakes as well you can't rub out. So that's a good experience to have those moment to moment sort of feelings of kind of disappoint. It's always disappointing drawing, it never goes right. But to sort of to experience those things and then to carry on, and then you realize actually that it's not so bad and it's actually quite fun. And also there are bits of the line here that are just taking the point from one place to another, and that's a legitimate line. So that's not even about how something looks,
So
but
that's
because it's got a, oh, sorry.
there's a line from shoulder sort of dropping down to the ankle. So is that one thing you mean, sort of taking a line through the whole?
Yeah, yeah. So that's just taking I don't know which obviously I can't remember exactly which order, but I'm guessing it came down from the top down to the bottom just because it gets the line gets sort of fluffier at the bottom there. The So that's sort of just taking the point down and also across the feet as well. So it's so that's taking the line across as well. If it's got a reason for being there, if it's doing some work, then it's a legitimate move, as it were. Uh, if it's just trying to impress or something, or to then that's not so good. The But just doing that thing of actually taking the line across can be a bit of a breakthrough, because it's sort of uh, because it's telling us that the drawing can have multiple functions all the time, or the line keeps changing its function. It can. There's lots of ways to make the drawing resemble what we're seeing. Should we go back again to the other one just to see? Oh, oops. Yeah, yeah, because on the foot that's further away, for example, that's sort of trying, that bit of the line there is trying to see how um the foot is sort of placed on the ground there. And then the foot that's nearer is more like a kind of an outline map. It's like an island, as it were. I'm picturing there of, imagine sort of doing an outline map of Australia. It's got a particular shape to it. You'd recognize it. And you could do the same with bits of the body as well. You could sort of, pull these out and abstract them. And that foot that's nearer is doing a slightly different thing from the one that's further away. So I've kind of used a different, as it were, for want of a better word, a different sort of language, as it were, of the lines there, because they're doing different things. Also, the arm that's sort of coming around, that the front there, I've used a particular line which maybe kind of suggests sort of movement, because I was seeing that as a kind of a movement. that's something else as well. And yeah, and it's a good way to start a drawing as well, because you've already given yourself permission to go wrong, because you can't rub out. So yeah, and also it's that thing of that you can have multiple versions of the same thing because you're still trying to see it. And it's a drawing. It's not, we're not pretending it's not a drawing, so if it goes wrong, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. It's absolutely fine to have all of those lines still in play. The you don't have to rub out these things really. It still works
So
with
then
this kind of mess.
it kind of becomes more of a record of experience rather than an illusion of the appearance of a person.
Yeah, yeah, and there can be both as well. And I think and that's one of the lovely things about drawing. It can be, I think a drawing can say several things at once. It's not as if we're copying a pre-existing image, that's out there. We're sort of finding it, as we go to drawing. Yeah, and these two, this is part of an exercise where the model occupies a position for 30 seconds and then moves, and then goes to a different position, and then for 30 seconds, and then goes back to the first one again. In this case, it's 3 times. You've got two poses repeated 3 times for 30 seconds. And so each time you're trying to see the figure, you've got to make these decisions quickly to try to see something and go with it. And then you have to move on to the next moment, because the model's going to move. And there isn't time to rub out, so you've got to accept it. And also the model will never occupy exactly the same position. It's impossible, so you've got to go with what you're seeing. So there's no way you can really kind of fix it and make the as it were, the perfect, in inverted commas, sort of image. Uh, but there is precision there, because you're trying to see the character of something, and that might change. So the figure on the left, our left, looking at this drawing, there's an arm that comes across, which is described like a sort of a wire man, as it were, sort of arm. And so that's trying to see something about the way the arm is, and that's enough. And then the other arm, there's an attempt to try to get the top line of the arm and the muscle there, sort of the deltoid and the bicep and stuff in it. But it's and there's also a couple of attempts to try to get the leg on one side, and there's sort of a darker line that's sort of going across the shoulder on the on his, what's it, left or right. um, and by doing kind of a slightly darker line there, that kind of hints at it being a little bit closer, maybe. There are several attempts to try to get something about the head, but each time there's only 30 seconds to work with, And then on the other figure, there's obviously he's just holding his hand out quite high, so it's very unlikely that the model's going to, catch the same position each time, doing that. So and so it's been shown as being in several positions, and there's an attempt there to try to get something about the face there. So there's an attempt to get the shapes of the shadows, maybe. And the thing here is that you've got this idea of the figure being an unsettled presence. So you're not sort of you're acknowledging that you're finding the thing. And of course, I'm forcing the issue here with this exercise, because the model's going to move after 30 seconds. But you've got to try your best to try to see it, and then move on, and then move on, and keep moving on. And you'll be surprised what you can do in a short time, And I tend to do this like a minute each time, and then 30 seconds each time. And a minute's a really long time, actually. A lot of people think that it isn't, but actually it's plenty of time to change your mind. Whereas 30 seconds is kind of you've got to make some decision quite quickly there. And it's okay to have multiple versions of the same thing, because they're all pointing to the same thing. They're all trying to get the same thing, and acknowledging that you're not quite getting it each time, and there's another way of seeing it is a good sort of kind of way of thinking. And with this, you can focus on a different thing, different aspects of the figure each time. So each time the figure reoccupies a space, you don't have to fix what's there before. In fact, it's probably best to almost ignore what's there before and imagine somebody else did it in a way. And then when you've inherited it, then you can sort of do what you like with it. And it just go to the next one, see what that one was as well. Yeah, and this is likewise the same exercise. And in this one, because for this there are say 2 poses repeated 3 times, so you could do 6 separate drawings. You could draw over the same position on the paper, so you have all 6 there, or you could have any sort of combination. And in this one, I've it's a demonstration drawing, so I've deliberately sort of done this so to show what's possible. Um, the the one on the I never know left or right. The left. I've obviously drawn over the same kind of position, and I can see that there's 2 kind of versions of the head there. There's bits of the figure that sort of work. There's the one of the arms I've tried to get with some with these kind of gestures that are indicating that the arm is kind of upright. So I've tried to get that, mimic that kind of what it's doing in the way I've used the mark there. And then other times I tried to get a kind of I followed the form around, perhaps with a sort of an outline. And then the other arm, because it's doing something slightly different further away, I thought I'd use a different kind of mark. So I've kind of used the side of the charcoal there. And other times I've tried to get kind of the edge, the outline. And other times I've tried to get the curve of the belly, for example. And also on one of the legs, I tried to get the curve of the sort of the thigh. And on the other, with the sort of kind of the 2 drawings next to each other, I can see that I've had several attempts at doing a similar thing, trying to get the kind of the edge and the outline, and also the arm that's coming forward and turned and so on, and some hint of the head. But I like this idea that the figure is unsettled. I think it's an honest way of thinking that actually we don't know what the world really looks like. And I think with drawing, especially life drawing from life, I think we get a little bit closer to that idea that we're sort of we're familiar with the way things look, but also we're kind of unfamiliar as well. And it's okay for the figure to be this unsettled thing, because that's actually kind of, that might be how it is. So the next drawing, yeah, and this is another exercise where we're using 2 points. So 2 pencils, and then a rubber, and this is a good exercise for drawing beyond the edges as well, because you can. What I tend to do with this, the first 5 minutes you're drawing with the 2 pencils, and then after about 5 minutes you can rub out. But I say, don't, well, try not to rub out mistakes. Try to use it as something to draw with. So you're thinking about it in terms of like a white chalk or something like that. And so even though you've got 2 points in play all the time, you can actually get precision, even though you can't rely on detail. So this is quite a good one for getting us to think that actually we can get something that's very true to what we're experiencing, but without relying on the details. So for example, if you try to get the mouth in the line of the mouth, you'd end up with 2 lines. So you've got to somehow deal with that, and you'd be surprised what you can do. And it's a good one for, if you kind of if the world's really kind of annoying you, you can go a bit mad with this, and then use a rubber as well to bring it back a little bit. And you could be surprised by what comes out of these types of drawings. If you go to the next one, because that's the close up of a head that's been worked on quite a lot with the rubber. But so even though there's constantly these 2 points in play, you're still getting the real thing. It kind of, because to a certain extent you're kind of drawing more with the rubber than you are with the pencils. But the fact that it's sort of out of control is good, because it makes you then think more about the form as well. So you can't rely on small details, but it makes you, it can be a good one for making you think about the forms and the physical presence of the person. As it goes to the next one, yeah, and this is one of the, and also perhaps in a longer course I might do a longer demonstration drawing where I'll draw for, could be 30 minutes or 45 minutes, say. And and I'll draw and talk and try to explain what I'm doing as I'm drawing, which is actually impossible, really. But I do my best, you know. And in this case, there are some things that are going on here. For example, I've noticed a sort of triangular relationship, say between the middle of the face to the two hands, for example. There's a line that's going across the shoulders, so I'm seeing that angle there. There's sort of islands of where I've tried to get the kind of the hands there, and on the kind of right, I've done a very quick uh, uh, sort of sugar cube, as it were, sort of drawing of the head. So seeing the head as a cube. There's a lecturer at Edinburgh College of Art who used to call it the Tate and Lyle School of Drawing. You know, okay. If you can imagine the head as a cube, that might be one way of seeing it. So then you've got like maybe a plane that's catching the light and a plane that's catching the shadow. Um, and that might be a good way of thinking about the head. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, and this is when I was doing a Tuesday morning and a Wednesday morning life drawing class, and I had the same model, so I decided to do the same lesson with this long demonstration drawing. So even though I had the same conditions, the same lighting and everything, the same model, of course they end up different, you know. So this is just you know, so when I do these, I'm talking and drawing, and I'm trying to also talk about drawing more generally as well. So it's partly I'll be talking about drawing strategies to do with looking, and drawing strategies to do with the way you make the mark, and all sorts of as it were, sort of technical and inverted commas things, I suppose. But also I'll be talking about drawing as an art form, and what we might want to think about as we draw, how we might want to think think about what it is, you know, what it is to draw. So okay, let's go to the next one. We're out of time. The next one, we go through these quite quickly because these uh mostly A4 pencil drawings that are either sketchbook drawings or loose A4 drawings, and there's some smaller ones as well. And this is the drawing I've done whilst I was teaching, and actually the reason it so works is actually because the model occupied the same position on some days. So I kind of reworked it. Uh, but when I've reworked it, I've treated it as a fresh drawing, not as a, you know, I didn't fix what was there before. I just drew over.
Mhm.
Uh, but and I am actually kind of really interested in faces, I think. But so that's more worked into. But also, I think as it were, the island shape of the foot there, you know, I think works, and also the leg is described with a kind of a zigzag line, which says something about the character of the leg in that position. But also, there's a line that kind of goes around the edge as well. So it's kind of there's two ways into describing that. But I think it's one of these lovely things about drawing. I think if you're using lines and marks and that kind of consciously, you know, if you're sort of thinking about why you're using them, um, you can use a whole range of types of lines, and um, you can tell the story in lots of ways. You know, you don't have to draw the details. You know, I mean, you could do that. You know, if you drew every detail, then that would also get you there. But it would that would be saying something different from a kind of a drawing where you're perhaps using a mixture of approaches. You know, go to the next one. Yeah, and this is like from a small sketchbook, and it's the same model, and she moved. And so what I do then is tend to start a fresh drawing, because people often move and then they realize they've moved and then move back again. So rather than sort of rub out and then redraw, because then if the person moves back again to the original position, that then you're going to be doing that endlessly. I'll just do a separate drawing and treat it as a separate drawing. And so the head's in a different position, and there are similar things going on here and also different things going on. Yeah, so next one. And so with this, see, none of these are actually, you know, a brilliant kind of artworks, you know, complete artworks. They're just drawings, you know, are just sort of but they're always little bits that I think are interesting. I think if a bit of a drawing is interesting, then that's victory. And I don't know. I kind of think the ratio of drawings that have something interesting in them, and the rest, I don't know if it's even as much as 1 in 20. It just, for me, if there's a bit of a drawing that works, or points towards another way of seeing something or whatever, it's worth it. It's good. And in this anyway, the obviously the face is worked on more. And I'm quite sort of interested about there's some things going on there as well that are quite interesting. But also the line of the or the lines that go across, which show where the arms are coming across the center of the body. Um, I like that. It doesn't need the detail of the hands, whatever. It does the job of saying what's going on there. Um, and again, that's one of these things about how drawings work. They kind of ideally you want the drawing to resemble something about what it is you're drawing, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to copy the the kind of the optics of the visual effects. You might be able to get there through types of lines that kind of imply a similar thing happening. And in this case, it had a sort of a going acrossness and like and a kind of a straightness sort of thing, horizontalness, and so it's doing that across them. Next one. I realized I could say quite a lot about all these drawings, and there's far too many. I've realized. Again, this is the same model viewed from a slightly different position. I don't know if the person moved or if it's two separate drawings. I suspect it. I don't know which it was. But the lines on the face, for example, are kind of curving around, trying to get something about the character of the head. Also, just maybe a little thing about, say, maybe the nose on the figure on the head on the right there. You don't necessarily need an outline. You can sort of get it through. In this case, I'm describing something about the nostrils there, or about the sort of the area of the eyes, either side of the bridge of the nose, and so it's the shape of it and so on is implied by what's around it, so that might be something to think about. Right, the next one. Yeah, and again, this so there's more, time, as it were, spent on the sort of the head, the hand. Uh, but again, I quite like the way I try to get the leg coming down, and it's taken a few attempts, and I think that's okay. It does the job. And also that the hand sort of works with the head there. I'm quite sort of liking that. The sort of the downward marks that are coming down from the wrist down to the elbow. Okay, the next one. And likewise, it's the same model. I'm just looking at the watch here. The similar kind of things happening here. Yeah, go to the next one again. Go to the next one. Sorry. Yeah, just very quickly with this one. It's that thing of trying to get sort of the hand or the head against the hand. So maybe trying to see the head in relationship with the hand and the arm. Again, it's that thing of details. You could use the details and get the details right. But actually, the more important thing is the way the head is leaning on the hand. So, in a way, like you could say that the object there of that bit of the figure is the head and the hand and the arm. So the next one.
Are you consciously thinking about that as well as you're drawing? What is the subject of this drawing? What quality are you trying, or is it coming through just in the process of kind of going back and forth and finding it?
I think because I'm trying to draw really quickly, I am consciously thinking these things, but I realize actually that also I'm drawing faster than I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And I think it's good to trust the drawing, the drawing, where the drawing knows more than you do, kind of thing. Um, um, uh, it's a weird one because I think if you're looking, even if you're not looking at the paper, you will get something that's true if you're being honest, if you're sort of really paying attention to what's present. So there's something about sort of looking and then transferring that idea into your arm, or to draw. And I think that's kind of probably working faster than your conscious, brain is, as it were. I mean, I don't know about the kind of neuroscience of it or anything, but that's how it feels. Um, uh, and this is like a similar thing. So perhaps it's enough to have just got a couple of lines for the forearm and so on, and a different type of line there for the hand. Yeah, if you go to the next one, because I'm really aware that I've got far too many of these images. Um, the yeah, just maybe one thing about this, maybe the similar things going on to the previous ones. But also, I found a sort of a natural endpoint to this with the drawing, with the belly going around. So I've made that kind of the end of the drawing, and that might be something to think about as well. Is that, you know, because sometimes you might be drawing and the drawing kind of dissipates, and that's fine if that's what you're choosing to do. But sometimes you can sort of make the edge of the drawing a particular bit of the figure or something, and it makes, you know, that's kind of, that works for that drawing. Okay, the next one again. Yeah, I think I included this just because I think it's sort of, I'm quite, it's a little thing. I can't quite please with the little finger. um, and and there's that thing as well, like, you know, because say with the hands, you know, you could try to get all the fingers and so on, but you could end up with almost like a cartoon hand, really. But sometimes just by getting the a few details right, you know, it's plenty. And a little finger has a very particular shape. Um, so that's a thought there. Um, yeah, the next one. Um, yeah, I don't know why I included this now because I'm not so keen on this. But the head is sort of quite interesting, I suppose. It's sort of coming there. Um, yeah, go to the next one.
I'm noticing just how much incising into the paper you've got just from the marks you're making here.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I kind of included this one as a sort of more of a close-up image, because you can see that. So I'm using like a mechanical pencil because it saves sharpening, you know, the pencil. The yeah, so I'm kind of drawing into the paper, and often the paper tears and stuff, and uh but you know, it's all part of it, you know. And then same with this, you know, obviously you can see that the head is works on more the face rather, and then but the hat, it's got a few lines, and I think that works, you know. I think it works. We sort of know what's going on there, I think, you know. And likewise, the different type of lines going on, say with the hand, the way it's kind of curved in a particular kind of way. um so bits of it sort of work. Let's say it's a victory if bits of the drawing work. Um, okay, the next one. And likewise, it's the same person. And the next one. Yeah, again, yeah, and the next one. Yeah, so this one, I think there's no rubbing out on this. This is like almost like a continuous line. And I think it's sort of interesting the way the legs were, you know, those curves there. And it kind of sort of just about comes together. Um, and the shoulders are described with that sort of a squarish kind of shape, and like the hands are like sort of like islands. And I don't know how it wasn't a very long drawing, but there's just enough there, and it kind of works. Okay, the next slide. All right. Yeah. And yeah, so likewise with this, it's, you know, the arm, you know, perhaps one that's nearer. It's just hopefully there's enough there to tell you what's going on with the arm there, and the way the hand is sort of placed on the ground there. Um, okay, the next one. Yeah, and these ones are drawings done in museums of uh, uh, busts. The So when I go up to London, the I try to get my money's worth. So I go on the first. I got a network card, so I go on the first cheap train and take sandwiches and usually walk everywhere and do whatever I need to do, and then maybe spend time in a museum drawing. Uh, you know, Busman's holiday really. Um, and so here these are drawings done in the National Portrait Gallery. Um, and I find it's a good way of thinking about drawing, because obviously the human shapes sort of lump of stone or clay or whatever it is not moving. So I can sort of keep looking and looking and trying things out. But I'm hoping to sort of maybe somehow find a fresh type of line or a fresh type of mark or something new that I couldn't have thought of before. It's often difficult because the way lighting works in museums, often you're drawing in your own shadow and so on. But I think it can be a useful way of thinking. And I've started making notes about how long I've taken on these drawings on the side there. So, and this one I kind of went back to it on a different day as well and carried on working on it. And the next one, next slide. And this is quite a quick one. Oh, 25 minutes, probably more than I thought. The and this is from the V&A. Uh, and it's sort of it's finding the figure and the details and so on. So it's kind of just about coming into being. And the next one, I'm sorry if I'm rushing through this. I realize I got far too many images. Again, this is like from the V&A. So this is from the casts court room. And I've drawn this bust quite a few times, and I just find it just really interesting. Uh, yeah, there's a few things going on. Well, yeah, a few things going on here. It's that incomplete thing. You know, you don't have to complete the figure, say with an outline, say. Um, if it works, it works.
Even at this scale, your marks are being made very fast by the looks of it. Is that right? I mean, the actual marks
Yeah,
you're putting on the page, there's a constant pace to them, it seems.
yeah. But I'm trying to. I think I'm trying to sort of get ahead of myself and try to surprise myself. I sort of if I think I know what I'm doing, I think then there's alarm bells. Like I mean, one of my bugbears with the sort of the paperwork side of, say, teaching uh, is this sort of you know, it's like the Sasquatch Hat Company thing. This smart outcomes. It's a load of rubbish. The the you cannot do that with life drawing because or drawing from life, because you're trying to be surprised. It's a constant process of paying attention to the presence of something and being open to the possibility that there's another way of seeing something, and you don't know really what it is you're seeing. Once you think you know what it is already, then it's really just a case of filling in then. So it's no longer a drawing in any kind of sense that I find interesting. It becomes a sort of just a design project rather than an active sort of living thing. Because another thing as well, I mean, the drawings, I think of drawings in terms of drawing as an art form as meaningful traces. So you're trying to make these lines mean something. Um, and if all they're doing is copying a pre-existing idea, then all the viewer can do with that is like it or not, or agree with it or not. There's no gaps. There's no way into it. Whereas I like the idea of drawings sharing something. Um, uh, I'm aware of the times. I don't know if to digress a little bit, because one of the things I was going to start this talk with was um, these East Kent daily time slips, these things that my dad had from he works on the buses, and there'd always be like a stack of these little bits of paper, which on one side were printed with times and stuff that you'd fill in, I suppose, for your work, and on the back they were blank, so they're just bits of scrap paper. And but when I'd ask him about things, he would make little drawings, like schematic drawings, not sort of wonderful works of art or anything. But the thing there was like this idea of this line coming into being that's describing something. And there is perhaps he was sharing a memory, say, of the war or something. It's perhaps like a view of Aramunch from the sea, for example, and things that happened as the so there'd be a line for the horizon line or the sea line, a line for uh, the cliffs coming from one side down to the town and up the other side, and there was a hotel on one side, and there was a water tower, and there was like a position on the other side, and there was an area sort of in the seafront where they had to destroy the seafront to get so they get tanks and things up. So that would be described with a couple of parallel lines and a sort of a scribbly mark. But things like watching this line, this sort of inky, it'd always be like the biro on the mantelpiece, and it'd always be it kind of reincarnated. It'd always be the same kind of biro. So when it kind of finally broke, there'd be another one that looked the same. The um the but it had a particular kind of biro blue line, that sort of slightly gloopy, inky line. And I'm watching these this line coming into being, sort of noticing his touch and that particular presence. So all this, these lines, they meant something. But I think with and it was sharing and so on. So it wasn't about sort of making a work of art. It was about sort of sharing something, a memory or something, and about kind of trying to get the idea into my head, trying to transfer these memories or something. Um, so I think that's kind of I think drawing for me works sort of like that. It's not about sort of uh, kind of impressing anyone. It's about its function. It's about how it works and what it says, and how, So and I think for drawings to be expressive, they have to sort of it's a mixture of control and letting things go as well. But unless there's um, it's got to be meaningful, and like I think you said about sort of these are quite quick drawings. That's partly because I kind of I'm running away. I'm not running away from. I'm trying to not let that sort of tedious sort of I know what I'm looking at way of thinking catch up with me. I want to sort of be surprised. I want to find a new mark or something. I want to find a new way of seeing it or something. Um, I think that's what I'm doing anyway. The next one, and it's the same I say same person, same plaster cast, and the next one. And again, this is another plaster cast from the V&A. And there's sort of some lines that are going across diagonally across the face there, and I know that's in a way that's not kind of transmitting any details, but I think it sort of says something about the proximity and the shadows and so on. So in combination with the other marks, it's kind of it works, and I quite enjoy those marks. But it wouldn't mean anything on its own. It's only because it's in combination with other bits of the drawing which kind of look like something in a conventional way. Next drawing. Yeah, and this is like a drawing of the life mask of William Blake in the National Portrait Gallery. It's actually hard to see this because it's in terms of drawing, because I'm sort of drawing in my own shadow, but I'm trying to sort of see his face. And there you've got an actual cast of his face, so you're getting as close as you could really with to the person. Okay, the next one. And this is another bust, obviously, and quite quick one. And next one, to the poet there. Yeah, again, similar type of thing there going on. Just trying to get the form, trying to see that. And the next one. Yeah, so this is quite interested in this sort of this bust. This is Collie Kibber, who's I think it was a sort of a poet laureate. Apparently, is dreadful or something. I don't know. But it's the um, yeah, it's trying to see his face, and of course it's a representation of him, but I'm trying to kind of see him there. And in this, if I go to the next image as well, yeah, close up, you can see the way the paper's torn and so on. So it's not, it's not resolved, but that's fine. It's trying to find it, and maybe an earlier version of this would have been nicer looking, maybe, but uh, but this sort of shows you sort of perhaps what I've kind of worked into the paper. Like I said, a lot of it is not necessarily controlled. It's always a combination of trying to sort of be conscious of what I'm doing, but at the same time allowing it to work on a more sort of not necessarily automatic even, but sort of automatic subconscious level as well. And the next one. And this thing about me trying to find new lines or something, but by drawing these busts, So this is sort of Joseph Conrad, but it's of a Jacob Epstein sort of sculpture, and I really like his sculptures. Um, uh, so this is like trying to see the face, also trying to draw the object, but also trying to be free of both of those things and trying to sort of see what comes up. So I think this maybe is giving me some hope that there might be some new type of lines. Sounds like a silly thing, ambition to have to try to find new lines, but like
But you're mining
um,
by making the drawing in some way.
it's what? Sorry.
It's as if you're mining for new marks in your drawings.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Um, it's that weird one. It's like but I think it comes from paying attention to physical things like say drawing people from life or drawing objects from life. Because I think that's a genuinely creative process because there's that thing that you're drawing. It might be a person, it might be in this case, a sculpture of a person. So somehow it's got to resemble that, but there's any number of ways you can get there. And that also then depends on all the drawings you've ever seen, all the representations you've ever seen, and also the sort of like your sort of drawing strategies to do with seeing or to do with making the mark and so on. So there's lots of things in play, um, uh, and occasionally something something comes through that you couldn't have predicted. But I think it comes from that effort. It doesn't come from just making it up. I think it comes from, you know, it comes from paying attention somehow. But just thinking through drawing, it's got in combination with that physical thing of making that mark and thinking that way. Yeah, and the last one for this bit, you know, of these, yeah, this is just close up, just so you can see it a bit better, you know, that's all really. And then finally, I'll just be very brief on the last one because just perfect timing. Yeah, this is like I've sort of dipped my toe into sort of doing portrait commissions, um, and these take forever to do. And a couple of things that I wanted to get into this drawing. I was given quite a lot of visual reference of these people, and um, and one of the things I was told is that they were quite sort of touchy-feely sort of thing. They had quite affectionate, you know, and I wanted to get this idea of touch into drawing. And how do you do that with a drawing? Yeah, and a couple of things that I think might work is that uh, say with the hands, I redrew the hands loads and loads and loads of times. Other times they were more detailed, and finally I ended up with this version where the tips of the fingers kind of merge. So partly, in a way, it's a bit sort of obvious in a way, you know, a kind of a graphic device saying, "Oh, the same," you know. So that's something that's going on. But also, if you look at the next image. Yeah, so the yeah the so here I wanted that idea of the one, you know, perhaps you imagine sort of, you know, pressing your head against somebody else's head and so on. So you've got the sort of the details of where things are, you know, getting things in the right place kind of thing. But also the lines that come across from one head to the other, so they're literally drawn together. Also, they're separated because they're two separate bodies, you know, as well. So there's little things like that going on that are known to do with the way the known to do with visual appearances on that superficial level, you know, of getting details right. It's finding ways to use marks that maybe do that, but also have that also are the equivalent uh, of some thought. You know, in this case, they're kind of drawing the two together, and also reinforcing this idea of touch and feelings and so on by trying to get the hair, the sense of the hair, so you can imagine. I remember what it's like to have hair. the yeah, you can start sort of rewinding if you like, and because that's the last image, you know. Um,
Thank you
so
so much. I
sorry, it's a
just,
bit rushed. I knew I had too many images, but there you go. You know,
you've done a great job of kind of talking eloquently on all of those images and still managing only just to tip over time. Um,
no, I'm happy to go on. By the way, you know, so that's fine as well.
well, I mean, it might be. I obviously understand if some people have to leave, that's no problem. But maybe if anyone did have a few questions, if I just sort of take us off of the share there, and I'll just add myself in too.
Uh,
If anyone did have any questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat, and I'll put those to Roy. One question actually I did have from Jane Holter for you, Roy, was that she'd recently been to see the Frank Auerbach exhibition and wondered if you'd seen it and if you had
yeah.
any particular
Yeah, I've been back
words
three
to say
times.
about his drawing.
Yeah, I bought. I used to have the kind of the Friends membership years ago, but I specifically bought it again so I can go every time I'm up in London. I go back and have another look. Um, so I'm getting my money's worth. Yeah, no, I love these drawings, and the often with me, I love the drawings of artists much more than the paintings. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, I worked out that a few years ago that I probably have about 1,000 at least then, you know, or books on, you know, catalogs, whatever this, that, and the other, on drawings. And when it comes to perhaps like old master drawings or whatever, I often know their drawings. And when I see their paintings, I'm disappointed. You know, I just sort of find the drawings far more interesting. But the Frank Arbach, I think they're fantastic. I think they're uh, it's a thing of like, I think if you can trust that the artist is being sincere, then you'll go with it, because you could do a type of drawing that was sort of looked a bit Frank Arbach-ish, um, but might be a bit, you can imagine a kind of somebody trying to do something similar just because he wanted to create the same effect, and then it would be quite hammy, and I think you would notice it. Whereas I think, and I don't know quite what it is, but I think you can see when something's the sort of like the necessary outcome of a process or a way of thinking. Um, and then even if it doesn't work, even if it's not a particularly good drawing or whatever it might be, uh, you'll still go with it. You'll still believe in it, and you'll still kind of appreciate it. Maybe much better than something that's much more so than maybe something that's conventionally better or something. Because I think it's that sort of honesty that comes through. And I think one of the things I like about his drawings is that it's constantly trying to. I remember one of the books, Robert Hughes' book on him. I think it was a quote from Kossoff, early on Kossoff, that Arbach was continually rejecting marks that lie, and I think that's kind of what I like, that it's probably also why I kind of try to work quickly because I'm trying to sort of keep that at bay. It's like this sort of bad ghost that sort of it's almost like this people pleaser or something. It's like this sort of like you want something that's almost accidentally, kind of attractive. You don't want to sort of start with the ambition of making a nice drawing. Um, you end up with a cliche if you start, doing that. I think, um, and I think people spot it, and even if they don't consciously spot it. But yeah, no, sorry, I'm gibbering. Yeah, no, I really like it, and I'll go back again when I'm in London, and I'll keep going back and uh, yeah, get my money's worth. Yeah.
I'll share a link for
Oh,
everyone. It's on at the Courtauld. There's the Frank Auerbach charcoal heads, in case anyone wants to see a bit more about that. I've got some practical questions from everyone, Roy, if you don't mind.
yeah, yeah.
Jerry asked what size your Silverpoint drawings are.
They're roughly about A5 size, those ones.
Mhm.
Um, some, not quite, but that's about the size they are. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
And Janet's asked what kind of paper you use for the drawings where you've sort of incised into the paper. So I guess that was the sketchbook drawings, mostly.
Yeah, but there's a few. There's some of them are on moleskin sketchbook paper, so it's quite sort of slight card-like kind of paper. It's got like I think it's treated with some sort of slightly they vary slightly, but slightly maybe kind of yellowish sort of type of coating of some sort. But I noticed that when you kind of rub into it a lot, you take off the that color sort of thing, and it kind of uh, I mean, that's just an accidental effect. I don't do it deliberately, but that's just how it works. And the other papers are the trying to think. I've got them here somewhere. It's quite a thick paper, um, yeah, just sort of cartridge paper really. But this is what the just see if I can get it. So
Quite thick and quite smooth. Would that be?
yeah. Yeah, the risk of it being a product placement thing, it's the yeah, this kind of that kind of stuff. Um,
Brilliant.
so it's what it's 220 grams or whatever it's called, GM whatever it is, yeah, and it's a smooth heavyweight paper, yeah.
Uh,
Um,
Martine's asked whether the kind of key to your spontaneity is partly sort of working quickly and working without an eraser. But I guess you are using an eraser some of the time, but as a positive drawing tool, not as a way of getting rid
yeah,
of mistakes. Is that?
yeah, I'm trying to use the rubber as something to draw with, I'm trying not to rub out. It's it can be tricky because the drawings will get really full of marks and it can get really confusing. But it's a case of trying to sort of enjoy it. But as I say, I mean, it's rare that drawings end up being kind of nice drawings. You know, it's I know that if I was set out to make nice drawings, you know, I would hate them. You know, they would look like, you know, I think they would be cliches. I think because I think it's a bit like when you start drawing, especially when you're drawing from life. Uh, the first few minutes will be a certain type of drawing. And it might be quite successful because maybe there's only a couple of ideas in play, so the marks are more linked with the thoughts like that. But then when it goes on a little bit longer, um, it will become a different type of drawing. But if you and then you kind of, you know, so the drawing process, it's a continual process of changing and realizing that the drawings become something different and changing it. Yeah. Um, but uh, but what you're seeing to start with is sort of what you're expecting to see mostly. So I think I like the idea. I think this is really important for me. I like the idea that every moment of the drawing it can change. So um, I wouldn't ever do a kind of drawing where, for example, that I did an outline and then filled in the detail, you know, and the outline never changed. You know, uh, I mean that's just the way I would think. You know, the I mean, I could do an outline and then draw within that, but I hope I would allow myself to disrupt it if it needed to change. I wouldn't stick with it. I wouldn't keep, you know. I like the idea that you know you're it's you're literally changing your mind, you know, as you're drawing. You know, so the person you are 5 minutes in is not the person who started, and the person who's still drawing 30 minutes later is not the same person who's 5 minutes in. So the um the because things have changed, everything's changed, you know. And going back to this drawing exercise, is the one where the repeated short poses, you know, I'm forcing the issue there of getting people to uh keep moving on to the next moment and so on. But you could think about sort of say a 30-minute drawing as a series of 1 minute drawings, really, you know, that might be a way of thinking. And not any of those minutes need to be sort of loyal to the previous minute. You know, they could all be different drawings. You know that I haven't got to the bottom of why why I draw or why I find it so interesting. But I mean there are various things, but I think it's sort of partly it's trying to see something um, that you kind of maybe every now and then you kind of catch a glimpse of, you know. And I think maybe a good drawing gets a glimpse of it in inverted commas, you know. I don't know. Hmm.
Thank you, Roy. I just I'll ask one more question just because Sally put it to you a little while ago, so I'm going to ask it. But I can see people have asked some great questions, and we won't be able to get through all of them. So I'm just going to put a link to Roy's Instagram. Do you mind if people ask you questions on
No,
your Instagram?
no, no, don't mind. It might take me a while to get back because I'm a bit rubbish at getting back to people quickly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, you've got some great images on there that people can sort of interpret themselves as well.
Oh,
But
so I thought, sorry, I just say I've also got a WordPress blog as well, and there I've perhaps like maybe writing a bit more depth about things there. But yeah.
I'll just share a link to that as well for everyone in just a second. But one thing that Sally's asked for is just for you, what are the differences between drawing from a life model and drawing from the busts or sculpture? Is there a particular difference for you?
Um, I think the only difference really is that the you know what one's living and moving and one isn't. You know, the uh the good thing about drawing from a bust is that you know that it's not, you know, it's going to stay consistent. You know, so that's allows you then to kind of experiment in a slightly different way, maybe because you don't have to rush. You don't. It doesn't necessarily come to an end at any time. You know, you can. Um, uh, but that's also maybe uh, a drawback as well. So perhaps drawing from life, one of the good things is that there is a limitation maybe. So if it's a if the pose is going to end in, you know, say 20 minutes, then you're left with whatever you could do in that time. And you might think you need more time, but there never will be enough time. So So actually, it's good to sort of almost have these arbitrary cut-off points, say, with in drawing from life. But drawing from a bust, you can just draw and draw and draw. So one of the practical difficulties of drawing from busts in a museum is the lighting, because it's rarely the case that you can look at the bust and then look at your drawing and you're uh, seeing both clearly. Often you're drawing in your own shadow, maybe. And sometimes busts are sort of very tastefully lit because they want to make the things look nice. But that's not necessarily so good for actually seeing the actual structure of the thing. Good taste can be a bad thing, I think. And I think with I'd rather just sort of be able to see the heads, the busts or whatever, so I'm drawing them. And also things like, I've noticed it's particularly difficult drawing white marble busts because there's so many shadows and reflections and so on. And it's just difficult to see in terms of drawing. Yeah, so they all present different problems. I think so I'm never quite sure what I'm doing. I think with the drawing the busts, I'm trying to see the actual object, but at the same time, I'm trying to see what I think might be the face that's sort of inspired the thing to look like it is. Um, but there's no kind of settling point there. That can keep changing really. But yeah, I hope that helps. I don't know.
I think
No-
that's wonderful. Thank you, Roy. This has been such an inspiring and enlightening talk. It's been such a great journey through your work as well. So thank you for putting so
Thanks.
much thought into everything you've been saying and into all of the images.
Wow.
It's been a joy.
Wow.
Well, I think we'll draw things to a close, no pun intended. But Roy, thank you so much. It's been great. Hopefully everyone can catch up. If you wanted to come back to any of this, I'll make sure the recording is up on our YouTube afterwards. Also, Roy's got a YouTube that I'll direct people to from there as well, if you'd like to have a little look at some more of his work and hear a bit more of his talking. Roy, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks.
And we'll end things there. So
Right.
thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Roy.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.